Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Muted. That's the second time this week I've done this. I don't know why it does. Spreaker used to automatically hit the mute button for me, so sorry about that. Roll call here. Let's do it again quickly. Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal, Eternity Eternal with the silver, Race Fan with a bronze medal tonight. It's our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection hanging on out with us. Oh, this pisses me off. All right, Green-Eyed Lady, how are you? Nice to see you. Attorney at Large, Michael Morris, Robert Lamoth, how are you all doing? Hippie Deidre on Vancouver Island, thanks for coming on in. Mel WD40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show talking aliens nice and smooth. So Mel, thank you for lubing us up. Scrolling on down, good morning, Skip to my Lou. T-Bone, my man, how are you? T-Bone will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Racing on down, we have Cosmic Joe. Thanks for coming on in. And we continue on with our roll call tonight. American Culture, how you doing? Happy Treason Day to you. And to all our American listeners, you colonial treasonists, you... I love you guys. Thank you for joining us, and I mean that in jest. Sensational Sherry, how are you? Jaquetta, thanks for coming on in. We continue with our roll call tonight. That just threw me off, man. Totally threw me off. Scrolling on down. Who's next? Walter Kochabinski, how are you? And Kaz, how are you doing? Kaz will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Digger Dog, Nick Adkins, Seven Systems. Good to have you here. Frankie B, thanks for coming on in. Delilah, thank you for joining us. I'm Hardcore. How's it going? Happy 4th of July to you. Jennifer Beveridge, good to see you. Necessary Dialogue, David Rice, thanks for coming on in as we continue on with our roll call here. Digger Dog once again. And Rockin' Rory, thanks for joining us. Al Garay over on Twitch, so excited to be American today. He did 1,776 jumping jacks in 17 minutes, 76 seconds. Figure that one out. All right. J True Seeker, good to have you. JSCO, thanks for coming on in. Operation Shutdown, good to see you as we continue on with our roll call here. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived. which means we can officially start this show. Tim Mothman and his goatee, two separate entities. Candace, how are you tonight? Cowie Schneider, nice to have you here. And Kevin Kennedy, Rock and Rory, good to have you both here. Well, let's scroll on down. Oop to Joe's Maine. You've got Americans. Yeah, you have, you treasonist. You know what I mean by that. All right, scrolling on down here. And Aussie Ange, how are you tonight? Thank you for joining us tomorrow. Well, give me an update, Ange. Am I alive tomorrow? Please let me know. The Ferret, how are you, my good Canadian kid? Scrolling on down. Who's next? Well, let's see. Hold on, I got to start the radio side. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in for our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. Coming up here momentarily, we are in roll call. We're pretty much caught up because the Americans are still partying. Happy Treason Day. Yeah, I'm going to get through that all night long. I will. Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Hi, Fast Hemi. And don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show coming up for you tonight. Our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection will kick things off here. So if you're in our YouTube chat or live on X, you're going to want to ask your questions in capital letters, and I will get them to Keith right through the 3 hours of this show. Then in hour number 3, we got Swamp Dweller. Keith will continue with us as he is going the distance tonight. All right, let's get right to it. Our Keith Andrews of the ET Connection kicks off each and every month here talking about aliens, ET contact. And what do you do if you got some aliens in your life? Keith is a lifelong experiencer who has literally gone through the gamut with some very high strangeness. You don't have to believe him. You don't have to wonder where he gets its information. But the one thing that Keith does is he's not a ufologist. He's just a guy who's had extraordinary experiences and now helps those who help themselves in learning about this subject. Our Keith Andrews, always good to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How are you, my friend?
Actually really confused, but really happy to be here.
What's confusing you?
I got back quite literally about an hour ago. Well, yeah, about an hour ago. And I do mean that quite literally as it sounds. Had an interesting conversation with the techs on the flagship. What people are calling quantum computers here aren't. They're very advanced computers for humans, don't get me wrong, but they are not quantum.
So are you saying you got taken right before the show?
Well, I got returned right before the show. I got taken sometime early this evening. I got back here about 8:15.
Now, when they take you, are they taking you physically or spiritually?
99% of the time, it's a physical removal. Fact of the matter is, I'm in my room on my own, and the kids don't wander in. They never have.
Okay, so in that scenario, how long do you think you were gone for?
Based on the amount of information I end up getting, I would have to say probably 2.5, 3 hours. And yeah, I'm talking 2.5, 3 hours real time.
Now, let me ask you this: when you are gone for those 2 to 3 hours, is it you that's gone, but they return you back to the timeline, or are you actually gone for 2-3 hours?
Well, as near as I can piece together, the way they laid it out to me, number one, I'm not removed from the timeline, period. Okay. But quite often what they will do is leave, if they're taking me while I'm having a nap, they will leave a simulacrum behind. Meaning, you can walk in here, it'll look like I'm here, but waking me up is a non-option. So just hopefully the apartment building doesn't burn down.
Well, that would be a hard time if you were taken spiritually by the aliens and all of a sudden your body suffered spontaneous human combustion. You would never know.
Oh, sure you would. You go and come home, go, where the heck did they move my body to? It's kind of like having your car stolen or burned to the ground while you're not in it.
I see. So what else is new in the R. Keith Andrews world?
Well, I think the biggest news piece is August 14th, I'm going to end up actually married. Assuming my fiance says I do when she's asked.
Well, I'm
so
sure
I go down on the 11th to, I'm pretty certain of it too. 5 years, haven't even had one fight, which is a great thing.
Well, congratulations, buddy, on getting married next month. That's very exciting news for you.
I appreciate that.
Everybody wants to know, will you be wearing a tuxedo or a tuxedo T-shirt?
Well, we will have to wait because when you say everybody wants to know, this includes me. Because I actually don't own a tuxedo anymore. But there is talk of me picking up dress pants when I'm down there. You know, I've already got a dress shirt, but as the tux goes, I don't own one.
Well, you know what? Either way, congratulations to you and your lovely fiancée, Kira. I bet you she's going to be a beautiful bride.
Well, that won't be hard. I mean, she starts off a beautiful woman, beautiful girlfriend, beautiful fiancée. It hasn't changed, so I can't see the name altering her appearance.
I would agree with you.
Yes, I'm a little too literal.
Well, we've got to meet her now, and she is a lovely, lovely lady, and I'm so happy for you, too. Congratulations. All right. Alien time going on. You know, there's a lot going on, Keith, in the government world with disclosure, and it's come out where one general from the United States Space Force came out recently publicly saying, we are not alone in the universe. I thought that was pretty profound. You know, he kind of dodged the question after that, basically saying, you know, it's a big universe out there. We can't be the only ones here. But you got to learn to read between the lines with these guys. And I'm just curious, from a disclosure standpoint, do you think we really need it?
In my opinion, those that believe don't require proof, and those who won't believe, there's no proof possible. So, no, requiring it at this point does seem to be a little overstated.
Why do you say that?
Well, about 15 years ago, just taking the States as an example, about 15 years ago, roughly 62% of the population of the United States believed we already had visitors. They were already here. Now, it's only gotten stronger since then. So what are we waiting for? Like, what are we waiting for disclosure for? You know, I look at it going, if you open your curtain up in the daytime and you see sunlight, do you need any agency to tell you the sun's up there?
Not really.
You know, this is why I say disclosure is kind of overstated. Although there are people that are claiming that say they're in this industry and they are still, well, what they spew, I keep asking, would you like a shovel or is the backhoe more appropriate? You know, because a lot
What
of
is the appropriate way to take that subject, Keith?
I don't know. I know if I say what's on my mind in that case, you're going to get a black mark on your show, and I'm not doing that for you.
Thank you.
Or to you, I guess would be a better way of putting it. You know, I'm not known for being subtle, in case you haven't noticed. But I mean, I look at it when people are still talking about, you know, about reptilians taking over and, you know, us being invaded sometime soon or us being a petri dish or a prison planet. I'm like, I would love some of the glue these people are working with. I know the glue I use for art projects doesn't work that well. Mind you, I guess it was rubber cement used to work best.
I get it. I totally get it. What do the aliens want?
Oh, that's easy. From a xenosocioeconomic standpoint, this is a phenomenal time in human evolution. It's not often that the off-worlders get to watch any civilization at the turning point where it's either going to blow itself all the way back to the Stone Age, or it's going to get itself pulled into alignment and thereby become an active member of the consortium. Right now, mankind is at that point, but it's not up to the government. It's up to the general population. And that's the neat part about it.
Do you think the ETs have a plan for what to do when disclosure is announced? Will they even be paying attention to what is happening around here?
That's kind of like, the short answer is no. Okay, they're watching for how people respond to it, certainly. But from their standpoint, disclosure happening now is kind of like all of a sudden you guys figure out that the sun rises in the east or rises at all. You know, like they've already looked at it and gone, you guys already know. You've had enough people tell you, if you haven't figured it out yet, there's going to be a problem.
So if the ETs came down, what do you think their first move would be?
Well, that would be what would their first move have been. When they first got here, they reached out to the local governments at the time. And I'm not talking just one. Now, you undoubtedly have heard rumor that back in World War I, in World War II, the Nazis were approached by aliens. Okay, which they were. Not for war purposes. But what you're not aware of is every other major country in the world was approached at the same time by various different factions. So, first of all, they reached out to the various governments. Then they tried, and when that didn't work, because the governments decided, no, we want to bury all this information, they reached out to major corporations. But when the major corporations gifted with some of the scientific advancements and keys to make their own discoveries, when they turned around and said, without you guys paying, without the rest of the population paying for it, we're not giving it to you, the ETs backed off again and went, okay, let's reach out to the individuals. Now, I'm not the only person that talks to these people. I may be the most off kilter, but you get to figure that one out.
Right. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. As we continue on with our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. Keith, in our solar system, a ninth planet was just found recently. They haven't really officially named it yet or anything like that. You know, I still think it's the 10th planet because in my world, Pluto is still a planet. But they've just recently found this planet, and I'm curious just your thoughts on whether or not there is a planet within our solar system that still has life on it.
There's a number of them. But I find it comical. They've just told you, oh, we found another planet. And like you, I'd call it the 10th one. Okay? Except for the fact that I can name two others that I found 15, 20 years ago linked to what, and I don't know how old the internet is, but inside the sun's photosphere, and these are planets that NASA knows about, because I got their ephemeris off a link tied to NASA. But Vulcan, which is inside the sun's photosphere, and Cruina, which is a planet sitting between Mars and Jupiter at the outpoint, and either just inside or just outside of the orbit of Mercury, okay, is another one that NASA already knows about. So there's already 12 planets in the solar system. Now, I don't know much about this 13th one, or 9th, whatever number you want to give it.
Are any of these planets what we would, or what many would consider Planet X?
Planet X, I'm not sure. I have heard mention of it, and I'm wondering if this one they're talking about that they've just found is what they're calling Planet X. But my understanding is Planet X isn't in the solar system. But I'm going to throw a wrench into things. I was recently shown something that was remarkable. We're told that Earth is a singular star. It's a singular star system, right? Well, I recently got introduced to what they call the fact that Earth's solar system is a trinary star system. But the reality is we won't know about it. Earth won't know about it for probably another 150 to 200 years, simply because our technology does not reach that far. Oh, and let us not forget Mobius, which is in the exact same orbit as Earth. And that's the one I suspect is what they're calling Planet X. Okay, but Mobius is on the far side of the sun in an exact match to Earth's orbit.
Well, let's tell you a little bit about this planet if you haven't heard about it. It's a discovery of a planet, and I'm surprised it's taken this long to find it. Okay, because literally it's said to be the size of Saturn. Right now, the name of the planet is TWA7b. It's 110 light years away. It was found by James Webb Telescope. It's the first exoplanet directly imaged by the James Webb Telescope. Additionally, astronomers have found evidence of a planet about 100 times the mass of Earth orbiting a red dwarf star called TWA7. So this is TWA7b. The planet was discovered is a gas giant roughly the size of Saturn and orbits a star in the constellation Antilla. The discovery is significant because it was made through direct imaging, a rare technique in astronomy. So that's kind of cool.
That is.
Yeah, it would take something, I think it takes something like 10,000 days to orbit the sun.
Well, that would fit with the rest of what I'm aware of. The thing that concerns me is mankind is so concerned about finding other planets to go to that they're not paying attention and cleaning up the one they're standing on.
Right. I know that bugs you.
It does.
I know that bugs you.
But we won't go down that rabbit hole, will we?
Not tonight, my friend. Not tonight. All right, let's get a couple audience questions right off the bat. Let's go to Nick here. So we got 4 minutes to go. My wife and I have been seeing 4 lights in the sky the past couple of nights in a diamond formation. The points appear to move but also fade in and out. What might we be seeing?
One little question. Are they all the same color? Are the lights all the same color? Or are they varied colors?
Well, let's just imagine that they are.
If they are all the same colors, I'll have to look into it. If they're varied colors, you're looking at Talon. It's the one race I have trouble with, but we understand each other to a degree.
Okay, so for our audience who may not know what that is, tell us.
The Talon is an ant-like race. Now, I use the term ant-like because they resemble ants on Earth. They do cast webs. And these guys are interested in finding weaknesses in any species. Understand they are carnivores. Okay. Well, that's not entirely correct. They literally go after the liquid nutrition. Whether it's whether it's a living individual or a plant, doesn't matter.
Or what else might it be?
Well, it could be another. I'm thinking with the configuration they're talking about, it likely is Talon, but they may have a new ship in the area. And if it's static white lights, the odds are you're looking at a research vessel, one that doesn't reach out to make contact. It's simply an observation standpoint.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Well,
what would they be doing around here? So a species like that, what would they be doing around here?
They are simply looking for, number one, it's a food source. Okay. And they are limited on what they can do there. But these guys have been around for a while. They are trying to find a planet they can relocate to. And no, bearing in mind, Earth is protected. You don't have to worry about that side of it.
Lone Wanderer would like to get a spelling for Talons.
Oh. Tango, Echo, Alpha, Lima, Oscar, and I believe it's Nero.
Lima.
N as in Norman. There we go.
There we go. 1 minute to go here before we go to break at the bottom of the hour. Let's go to Ozzy Ange. How do you feel, R. Keith, when they bring you back?
Sadly, I think the term would be disappointed, aside from the fact I got kids here and a fiance. Don't take that the wrong way, any of you. But I asked to get off this planet decades ago. I forgot to tell them don't bring me back. So,
I love it. I love it. Do you have any hangover from that?
It takes me a little while to restabilize, because I end up having, unfortunately, I have bananas in the house, but I usually end up suffering from a potassium crash, which, by the way, the astronauts from NASA, the ones that have gone to orbit, find exactly the same problem when they come back.
Sounds good. Keith, hold on right there. We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection happens near the beginning of each month, where Keith comes in and asks your questions about the strange, weird, and the unknown. Everything extraterrestrial. This is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We'll be right back right after this. All right, Keith, we're clear.
Okie doke. Yeah, I like what, who was it here? I think it was Ange. Yeah, Ange goes, your blood pressure would fall. It probably would, but mine falls so often I just don't notice. You know?
So for our audience who doesn't really see behind the scenes, I'm going to show you something cool here. Hold on. That's my daddy. That's my daddy right there. Give us a wave, Dad. This is his first time listening into the show live from studio. I'm pretty excited.
How's he feel about it?
How do you feel about it? Nice. He's having fun. We're taking him out to Flight 21 tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Here come the comments here.
That ought to be a trip.
I'll bring him up on the screen here for you. All right, here, Dad. Hey, watch here. Everybody's saying hi to you.
Mm-hmm. See, this is what you get for walking in on a show that is, right. And it's watched literally by people all around the world.
Al Gray over on Twitch, I need you to do some exercise for my pop, if you don't mind. There we go. Hold on. Hi, Dave's dad. My dad's name, I'm Dave Jr. My dad is Dave Sr., and he is 76 years old. And we're taking him out to Flight 21 tomorrow. Oob to Papa SOR.
Yeah, so your dad's a young sprog.
Oh, he's there. Oh, thank you for the love, guys. Dad, Al Gray is going to do 76 standing calf raises in honor of you. All right, Keith, we got about 2.5 minutes.
Okay, I'm here, obviously.
Walter, who's listening, says, "Hey, Dave, I'm 73, so you have to respect me."
Clearly, we haven't met.
My dad's turned into a frickin' teenager with his texting.
What, he can't spell either?
No, he's got a busy life. He's got a busy life here. He's a social butterfly. He's got wings.
Well, the good news is that, I heard it put one day that youth is wasted on the seniors, or youth is wasted on the young. I mean, crikey, you got to be getting up there, Dave. Or are you really that far under and below me?
I am that far below you. I'm 52.
Oh, God.
Jennifer Beveridge is having a drink for you.
Oh, is she?
Yep. Yeah. It's pretty sad when I got my father's social life. I have to have the talk with him. Be home by 11, Poppy. Be home by 11. Nina Williams, how are you? All right, 20 or 33. No, sorry, Keith. We got about a minute to go. I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, just scrap. We got about a minute.
Right there? Yeah,
I'm here.
One sec, Keith. Second. My dad just wanted to see the sign in behind us.
Oh, okay. All right.
There you go. Yes, T-Bone, I'll get to that. 1 second. All right, thank you tonight to Candace, our lone super chatter of the night. Appreciate the love, Candace. Super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Here we go. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in as we hang on out. It's kind of weird. My daddy is in studio tonight. He's hanging on out. First time being here in studio live. Our Keith Andrews of the ET Connection continues right after this. But first, we want to remind everybody that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go tonight, our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. Hanging on out. Keith, it's always good to have you here.
It's always nice to be here. I'll tell you, the number of questions I get, you never know where they're coming from. Well, we know where they're coming from. We just don't know where they're heading.
I'm actually quite surprised. I'll be honest with you, Keith. I'm a little nervous. My dad is standing right here over my shoulder, kind of listening in to what's going on, and it's intimidating. For our radio audience out there, my dad's laughing at me right now. You know, he traveled 5 hours to get here, so he's hanging on out. I said, "Hey, Dad, do you want to come into the studio for the show?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Damn it. Why did I say that?" And now here he is, jostling every word I say. He's parked right behind me, Keith, so if he has to smack me in the back of the head just in case I screw up, he'll be right there to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, considering I've seen ghosts smack people for what they were doing, watching your dad do it wouldn't be that much of a surprise. Although I don't think you got to worry about that. You don't have a baseball bat handy.
Right.
Or do you?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't smack me anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah, but
I'm sure. He's always prepared. He's a farm boy from Alberta, so just in case he has to give me a little cuff across the back of the head, I think he would.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you something, Dad. While you're here, Keith, you can tune on in. I played my dad a ghost EVP for the first time that we caught out at Flight 21. He couldn't believe it. What do you think? Remember those kids? You were asking me about those kids?
Yeah, it certainly was, yeah.
What do you think about that?
Unusual.
This guy has never met a microphone he doesn't like, and he's refusing to talk here. Keith,
not
EVPs.
worry, Dave. It's not the microphone he doesn't like.
Keith, with EVPs, can aliens create EVPs?
Absolutely. It's just another frequency. Although, in all fairness, they don't bother. The ghosts are doing enough.
How would they know our language?
Well, they have literally, when you take a look at the xeno-socioeconomic evolution and the cultural evolution, these guys have been around since before man. So they've watched the language evolve and studied it while they were working at it. You know, while it was happening. So, I mean, it's kind of like how you learned English. You know,
okay.
You were there, you listened. That's all they did. And then, of course, when you get the Gaddafi and the Eniod, they came down and literally learned the language from them. And then took it back up and carried on teaching to their own people. And for those of you that don't know, the Eniod are the ones the Egyptians considered gods, and the Gaddafi are the ones that everybody considers Norse, as in your Norse, Roman, and Greek gods. I just know them by
is that only
names.
is that only for species that have been here before? Do they have like a built-in translator inside of them?
No, that's what the hybridization program was for. But they don't have the ones that can speak. We'll call it a Terran version, okay, if you will, a trade language. The only ones that can do that are the ones that actually have vocal cords capable of doing it.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
Some races,
all right, let's get to it. Let's get to super crazy here. Are we in danger of a free-floating rogue planet colliding into Earth? If so, would the ETs help us prevent a collision?
We'll start with the no, and we'll end with if the planet was going to be wiped out by an actual free-floating planet. Sorry, guys, you're done. Because it's a natural evolution, and it's one of those things that mankind has been given the technology to work with. But the problem is, many different countries were given parts of the same tool. You get along, you get the tools. You don't get along, you don't. It's a pretty black and white problem.
Right. I can understand that. But I think it's also human nature that we think that the aliens are going to come down here and bail us out of everything, much like, we hope for an inheritance to clear off our debts, before we continue life.
Sad to say, although you call it human nature, I call it poor training by the generations before. But you are right. The massive majority of people figure somebody else is going to straighten out the mess. Problem is, we got free will and free choice, and we have the capacity to get along with everybody on the planet. 50,000 years ago, we had a totally unified planet, absolutely 100% unified. And if people would get that sorted out, we wouldn't have to wait for somebody else to straighten it out.
Keith, when you get fired up, you smack your hand on your desk, much like Khrushchev in the United Nations. Back in the 70s or 60s. Yes. I'm waiting for your shoe to start smacking down.
I'm not wearing any. And my slippers are on the other side of the room.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to Jennifer. What is the triangle formation of lights? Yeah, let's get into this. This brings up a good topic.
Those are the research vessels those are the research vessels of the Galactic Consortium. Okay, and they are literally the ones that come in to keep an eye on what mankind is up to. Now, I'd have to open up the file because in the second edition of Races of the World, I've got them broken down into 3, 5, 7, and 9 triangle configurations. But they're all consortium ships.
Do you think then, Keith, that the United States government has the TR-3B, the black triangles?
From my standpoint now, let's understand, I'm not in touch with the United States government itself, but I do know they've been reverse engineering a number of ships. It would not shock me to find they've got one. But I'll tell you, it will not operate at the same capacity that the consortiums do.
I think that the black triangles, many of them that we are seeing, are ours, especially when you see ones over war zones or areas of conflict. That's my opinion.
And that would not be a shock in all fairness.
What about the cubes? What do you think the cubes are when people say they see these cube-shaped craft?
Now, I'd have to look it up. I've got on break. I will take a look for it because I know I've got them listed. But they are another race, and no, they are not the Borg. Okay, let's just get straight there. But during break, I will take a look at the 2 books I've got on disc, and I will give you the name for who owns those ships. I just don't recall them right off the top of my head.
That surprises me.
Oh, okay. I thought you knew I had 2 books.
Well, I know you had 2 books. I'm just saying that you can't recall it off the top of your head. That's what surprises me. All right, Keith, let's go to Lone Wanderer. Oh, yeah, that was for my dad's name and age. His name is Dave, and he's 76. So I'm Dave Jr. Kim's asking, what does your dad think of aliens? Believe it or not, he actually just stepped out of the studio. He actually never really believed it up until the last couple of years. I think since my mom has passed, he's becoming a lot more open-minded to possibility. So I think that's really cool. Let's see how he does at Flight 21 on the weekend. All right. T-Bone, yes, I have shown my dad the Sasquatch face of the tree. He was pretty weirded out by it. And let's go to Jose. Keith and Dave, apparently there is a TR-4 Omega UFO plane. After all, I just saw it on Google. Yes, there are aircraft that look like alien ships. Now, Keith, do you think these designs that American craft are taking on are specifically for aerodynamics, or do you think that they are used to just be stealthy, or do you think they were copied?
Really bad, Dave. You broke off. Keith, I only got 3 of the words.
Okay. What I'm asking is, a lot of the shapes of new craft seem to take the shapes of what people would perceive as UFOs. Okay? So with that, do you think that we designed them that way to copy the aliens, or do you think we designed them that way for aerodynamics?
Most of it is for aerodynamics. Okay, but the reality is, do I feel they're being copied? Certainly. But do I feel that they're being replicated? No. So the good news is they're not a threat.
Out of all the ET species visiting this planet, how many are a threat?
If Earth was not protected, then 99% of them could be. But there's only 2 that I know of that would blatantly become a threat. But again, the Earth is protected, which means none of them are a threat. And there is a safeguard in there. Okay? Because if anybody, as it stands, the consortium rule is pretty simple. If any race were to try and invade or try and force a foothold here, not only would their home planet be destroyed, but the planet housing their primary, secondary, and tertiary governments would be blown up. And then they'd be disconnected and they'd be cast out of the consortium. So it's really not in anybody's interest to try and take Earth.
Does Earth have protectors out there for us from the potential invaders, or as Ted Cruz likes to call them, space pirates?
I love terms like that. The Stratosium, which are a 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptilian race, are actually on Earth. They have got footholds on Earth and are protectors of mankind. They are literally standing in opposition against the Teklek, which are your 4.5 to 5.5 foot long raptor-like. And of course, when you take a look at it, the Reticulans and the Gedefni are protectors as well. And the Pleiadians are certainly right caught in the middle of it.
Well, that doesn't sound like fun.
Well, the fact of the matter is, they got here before the consortium in general arrived. And once the consortium on force arrived, mankind, Earth itself, became a protected planet, not a quarantine planet, not a prison planet, and not a petri dish. Okay, it became simply protected so that mankind had the opportunity to evolve to the next stage. Or maybe I should say to re-evolve.
You kind of hit a real woo pitch there with the idea that many people believe we are on a prison planet.
Yes, I hear it all the time. And I'm looking at it going, well, if it's a prison planet, it is the worst protected prison ever. Okay, because look at the number of people that get abducted, as in broken out of prison, taken away, and then cruelly put back. I mean, this is a bizarre prison system.
It really is. It really is a weird system. So explain to people who don't understand the term prison planet what that may mean.
A prison planet, if you go back in Earth's history, okay, Australia was a prison continent. Prisoners were taken, people that didn't fit into society for whatever they deemed necessary, were taken and dropped off in Australia. And that being said, hats off to the people in Australia. You came from one heck of a hard background. But a prison planet is where you take races from anywhere that you don't want to deal with. You put them on the planet and you don't let them off. That's why they call it prison. But Earth, people keep leaving of their own accord.
One of the things that's leading up to this latest talk of non-human intelligence is the fact that many are starting to believe that they aren't alien at all, that they are time travelers. Where do you stand on this?
Absolutely no. Yes, time travel exists. You can, let's say you were in the 1800s. You can travel forward in time. Absolutely you can. All record of you will cease to exist. There will be no record of your interaction. And then all of a sudden you show up back in today's world. You could disappear from this time and end up forward in the 25th century, but you'll never come back. You cannot travel back in time. And I know that goes against everything, virtually everything people tell me. I just don't agree with them. Because reverse time travel doesn't work.
But what if it does?
I wish I could. Ultimately, if you think about it, you're going back in time. If you really want to see the way it was explained beautifully on Avengers Endgame, it was explained perfectly. When a person goes back in time, okay, they're still moving forward. And their past becomes their future. And when you come back, you've now moved again into the future, not into the past. Now, I don't know if that made any sense. I do know you can't travel back in time. And I know why. Because if you were actually able to travel back in time, you would have to unravel all of history in everybody's world Okay, and I mean the entire cosmos in order to do it.
Let's go to another question as we got 4.5 minutes. Our Keith
Absolutely.
Andrews and the ET Connection. James is asking, are there any ET races out there, like the ant people, who will enjoy eating even the Dracos for breakfast?
Oh, Lord, yeah. I mean, you take a look at any one of the carnivorous planets, have no problem with it. The Fuentiran will absolutely do so, as will the Spare Knocked In. And by the way, both the Fuentiran and the Spare Knocked In are essentially plants by human standard. But they will quite readily eat people or eat anything else that decomposes. Oh, and of course, let's not forget the Singinan. And they're just simply bloodsuckers.
Kim wants to know who the ant people are.
That would be the Talon. And the other nice little part about that is the Talon and the Taurians are in a constant conflict. The Taurians and the Talon don't get along. So, we got to look at the reality that war is not relegated to just humans.
Next question, Keith. Let's go to Jose. Do you think that the Phoenix Lights may have actually been a TR-6 Telos or human craft? Rumors indicate that it was an experimental rigid airship anti-gravitics platform.
Well, I won't argue the background of it because of the way that it was phrased. Is it possible? Certainly. Am I betting that mankind has got one that size? No. Okay. And again, I don't study these things, so I know very little about the Phoenix Lights themselves. Although, if I recall correctly, that was a ship, I think 13 or 15 lights across.
They figured it was about a 2-mile span.
That would make sense. But if it's what I'm thinking of, it was in basically a triangle configuration, was it not, Dave?
Boomerang.
Yeah, boomerang shape. Yeah, that would be consortium. Mankind hasn't developed the technology to be able to put a flying craft of a 2-mile diameter or 2-mile length in orbit in the air yet. They just don't have the tech for it.
That's very weird.
I won't argue that point.
90 seconds. Let's squeeze one more in.
Sure.
Super Crazy is asking, have you ever been in a romantic relationship with an alien, and is this common between different alien civilizations?
Well, the answer to that question, as far as I go, you're not getting an answer. As far as is it common between different species? Absolutely it is. Yeah, I know that wasn't what he was hoping for the answer, but what the heck. But yeah, it's quite common. This is how you end up with half-breeds. At least half-breeds with the ones that are actually capable of reproducing as far as humans go, or as far as each other go. Because not all reproductive systems work the same way.
Well, I don't know about that. But I would say that from what I have learned from talking to other people and reading up on the subject, that the many ET species, more of the scientific variety, seem to have a real interest in human sexuality.
Oh, that they do. That doesn't mean they can breed with them.
I'm not saying that. That's why we have hybrid programs.
But yeah, reproduction, especially from a scientific standpoint, and more specifically a xenozoological standpoint, reproduction is extremely fascinating.
Well, Keith, on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. 1 hour down, 2 hours to go with our main man, our Keith Andrews, and the ET Connection coming up on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, Keith, we're clear. I'm just going to put you back in the green room, and I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, no.
Be right back, everybody. 1 second here. Big thank you tonight to Candace, T-Bone, and Shelly for our super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support, everybody. So thank you very, very much. And let's see who else jumped in here. Let's see here. All right, we're caught up.
Not happy.
There we go. All right, Keith, we're coming back in 10 seconds.
Okay, doc.
Here we go. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Terrassus. Terrassus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam says the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Here's our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. Continuing on here on the big show as Keith joins us near the beginning of each month, hanging on out with us to tell our stories of everything extraterrestrial and in outer space. Now, Keith, thank you so much for being here tonight. Always appreciate you taking time for us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I love coming here. You know, I really appreciate the questions from the people.
That's right. That's right. We love it too. All right. Speaking of questions from the people, start off with Ms. Twinkle. What do you think of the object that just sped into our solar system? Only third one ever spotted.
Somebody's going to have to be a little more specific because I don't watch.
So there was through the satellite imagery, it looked like an object just raced through our solar system and out.
Well, that would be normal. The fact it's only the third one being seen could be a number of things, but this place has ships going through it all the time. You know, the fact that man's only seen 3 of them just means man wasn't paying much, either wasn't paying attention or just didn't have the tech to spot it. Because they've been sitting in this solar system for, well, they've literally been sitting here for centuries, but will settle for decades.
Let's go to Jaquetta. What do you think of Zecharia Sitchin's theory of ancient Anunnaki, a.k.a. the first gods?
Well, 2 factors. One, I don't actually know what his theory is, but I can tell you that the Anunnaki aren't quite so bizarre as you might think. They actually evolved on Earth, and then petitioned the consortium when they figured out they were not compatible to live here with humans. They petitioned when they made contact with the consortium. The consortium arranged to bring a ship in capable of carrying them off planet. Net result, the Anunnaki left. Now, let's be clear. I had somebody come to me one day and tell me they were a natural half-breed Anunnaki human. This is flat out physically impossible. Okay, because you got to remember, the Anunnaki are at least 15 feet tall before they reach the potential of reproduction. But the Anunnaki are one of the few races that actually evolved on Earth and then left. But would they be seen as gods by humans? Absolutely. But then the Caucasian pygmies will see people from any of the so-called first world countries as gods with their ability to make fire out of a big lighter.
Keith, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and stop pounding on your desk again.
My apologies.
Okay, Khrushchev.
Sorry, don't speak that language.
Jose is asking, TR-3Bs, are they really completely silent, or do they leave a slight humming noise as they pass?
Couldn't tell you about the TR-3 and the TR-3B, but I can tell you this. Every ship built in the third dimension leaves an echo and a shockwave behind and before it. Absolutely, by human hearing, they're likely pretty close to silent, but they are not silent.
I've heard craft that have like a buzzing sound to them.
Yeah,
what do you think they are?
That is simply if you will, silent running. I think that was a movie. But yeah, that is the subsonic whine that you're hearing, or supersonic. I'm not sure which. I hear it all the time.
Is that human or ET?
Both. See, the difference between the ET, the reason ET seems silent is because they figured out how to ship it out of sync. So most of the time, it's probably human. But a lot of the ETs can modify it, whereby it'll go beyond human hearing.
Right. Okay, let's go to another question. Let's go to T-Bone. How many of the known ETs use time travel?
None. There are many that have stumbled across it, but as I said earlier, you can only go forward. You can't come back. You also can't broadcast back. Although you can broadcast from the other side of the Milky Way and further.
Okay. So follow up to that then, if they were using wormholes to get here, where they could get here in minutes or hours rather than days and months, would that not be using some sort of time travel?
No. That is using a lattice work in the third dimensional space. That is simply a wormhole. You've got black holes, wormholes, and there was another term I heard the other day, which is a consciously made one. And I forget what it was called offhand, but no, a wormhole is not time travel. It is simply a shortcut. You remember the book A Wrinkle in Time?
Yes.
That's all a wormhole is. And those are very navigatable. That was terrible English. Or terrible pronunciation.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on to a different question. Let's go to Jose again. Do you think the United States Space Force officially operates black craft like the TR-3B Black Mantis?
Well, not knowing what the TRB-3 Black Mantis is,
that's a black Keith, that's a black triangle.
Okay. I would not be surprised at all. From my standpoint, that, mankind is trying to push forward. Absolutely. And do they have total control over what they're doing? No. There's no saying, push enough buttons, something will happen. But whether you want to call it officially operate, I usually take officially as in they've announced to the world, we're doing this. Right? So it wouldn't surprise me to figure out they got part of it. But the one qualifier there, it depends on the size ship we're talking about. Now, if we're looking at a ship the size of like the Galaxy Starlifter, or maybe a little larger, certainly they're likely flying one. If you're talking about something that has like a 1 mile span, I don't feel, from my understanding, they don't have the tech yet to make it fly. Either the material to support it or the power system to run it.
All right. Let's move on to another question. Let's go over to Nathan. Keith, does any country have a running dialogue with the Mantid folks?
I cannot say for certain, but I know they've been here for a while, so that would be the Kleeklock, and I would not be surprised at all to find out that somebody's got a running dialogue. But to extrapolate beyond that, no, I do not feel that any of them are exchanging any sort of military and or medical information. They're pointing them in the right direction regarding medical. Of course, for the Kleeklock, you may not want their medical.
How come?
Well, because they usually eat their crippled. That's their idea of curing a problem. So if you got somebody that is born with even a missing arm, they'll eat it. And they won't even wait for it to grow up. Some of the medical procedures that these other races use are a whole lot less enjoyable than what humans have. I don't know if I want to call them barbaric, but I'm certainly not a fan of them.
Let's go to the next one. Let's go to Greg. What are the flash bulbs people are seeing in the sky? So much confusion about them. They're like the bright power apps where all of a sudden things go really flash and then they disappear, Keith.
Those are usually a hop into hyperspace. In other words, that's usually you're watching somebody jump into either a wormhole, and I forget offhand, I've got it written down somewhere. Just recently, somebody made the comment about what technologically generated ones are. But I'm still trying to piece everything together and get it all documented. But most of the time, that is literally the power jump when they're hopping out of sync with Earth's vibratory rate.
All right, let's go to the next one. And let's go to Jose again. Is there a known or speculated record on the minimum maximum speed attained by a TR-3B? That would be unknown and classified because it is such a black project. But it is believed that the aircraft might be able to fly at hypersonic speed between Mach 6.7 to Mach 9.10. That's the big thought going into that from people that I've talked to, like Michael Schratt. Lone Wanderer is asking, is there a raccoon version of ETs like the ones in Nova Scotia that James Blackwood feeds? They seem very aware and know when food is served.
Well, first and foremost, and that's one I do have a little information on them, but just an update. Raccoons themselves are that smart. And especially if he's already been up with a routine, they will come anyway. It's the same idea as the training that Pavlov gave to the dogs years ago, like centuries back. If you provide food at a regular basis, wild animals, if they're inclined, are going to start running to it, just like hummingbirds will, or other animals. But yes, there are carrion tropes that look like raccoons. And no, I don't have a name for you right now.
Super Crazy is asking, what do ETs truly love about humans that they lack and actually wish to attain?
The capacity to tap into what we call 0-point energy. And much more importantly, mankind's collective capacity to take a totally logical situation, go the completely opposite direction, and still land on their feet. You know, it's that capacity to jump to an answer without all the necessary research. That is what they would like to be able to tap into. It's also what scares them, by the way.
All right. Jose is asking, cubes, triangles, spheres, cigars, all may be based on the same anti-gravity technologies reverse engineered and black budget developed by secret budget operational programs. Yes, but Keith, where do you think they got these ideas from?
Quite frankly, most of them came from humans. Certainly, they watched the ships coming by, but most of the anti-gravity stuff that they're working on, humans have actually developed of their own accord. They take inspiration by watching other species, by watching other animals, and then they work out how to do it. You know, regardless of what I've said, humans have a phenomenal learning capacity and are constantly underestimating their own capacity. So, I mean, most of it, really, humans are trying to work it out. And they're not doing entirely bad. But I will tell you, they would make a lot more headway if humans from different countries would start getting along a little more readily, and not worry so much about who is actually holding the rights to it.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, my friend. We go to Seymour. Is all ufology an entrepreneurial enterprise?
Absolutely not. At least not in my opinion. Okay, first of all, I don't use the term all of anything. Okay, but ufology itself, at its core, is reaching out to comprehend the almost incomprehensible images that they experience. Okay, so with this in mind, many ufologists are literally looking for, when I say they're looking for the truth, they're looking for the truth in a way they can comprehend and relate to it. The drawback is most of them are trying to fit it into human comprehension, which makes total sense. I mean, let's face it, who else is comprehension you're going to work with?
Next question comes from Super Crazy. Do you think aliens like Earth music? What bands do they like?
Well, that would be an individual issue. I mean, there are people that will listen to everything from country to your big bands to some of the, to rock and the heavy rock. Name the type. Somebody out there is going to like it. This is why when people tell me, oh, don't go into music work because you can't make money at it. Yes, you can. And the music is a very individual, music is a very individual issue.
Brendan would like to know, would superposition not allow for time travel forward or back?
Not sure the reference superposition, but the thing with forward time travel is that it doesn't disrupt anything. All it does is it stops the record of you at that moment. And then there's no track, but when you pop out on the other end, now you're dealing in real time and you start getting tracked again.
Fast Hemi wants to know, Keith, do you like Black Sabbath?
Well, I got nothing against them, but I'm going to really annoy everybody and tell you the music I turn to is country. I always have turned to country. And yeah, that put me on the outside where I grew up.
I would never have expected you to say that. I was taking a sip of my drink when you said that, and I almost spit it up.
You're welcome. I had that same response years ago in the bar.
Let's go to Aussie Ange 2.5 minutes ago, Keith. Ant people are here in Inner Earth, or are they just visiting Earth?
They're visiting. I have no doubt there are a few of them in Inner, but on the whole, they're just visiting.
What about the Inner Earth theory?
Which one? You mean about the Talon being inside Earth?
Yes.
Well, there's no doubt there probably are some down there. Have they got a foothold? I wouldn't hold my breath. Not given what is down there. See, the Talon have the only actual trifib vehicle that I know of. Technically, they're a quadrifib. They are atmospheric capable, underwater capable, and they're land-based walkers. And it's all the same ship. So are there undoubtedly some explorers that have gone down that are in Inner Earth? The answer is yes.
Let's go to Super Crazy. We got 90 seconds, Keith. Will our continued development of artificial intelligence lead to our doom?
Ultimately, if people keep relying, in my opinion, if people keep relying on artificial intelligence instead of real intelligence, yeah, it's going to create a problem. Because you don't want to see the outcome of true AI when it solves your starvation problem. Because it's not going to be fun. Think of solving a problem with taking no consideration of humans' well-being into consideration on an emotional level. I actually had that discussion with a group of people the other day. I'll call them people, you call them off-worlders. The solution, if you've got a chunk of property on Earth that has 100,000 people living on it, and the property itself will only support 10,000. In the name of humanitarian behavior, or nice, they will simply tell people, 90,000 you get off this chunk of land. They just
hold that thought, Keith. Hold that thought. We're going to go to break. We have our Keith Andrews through the show tonight on Spaced Out Radio. All right, Keith, we're clear?
Okie doke. I'm just going to run to the washroom. I'll be right back.
Sure. How fun is this tonight? Freebird, Americans. Freebird. I haven't played Freebird for you guys tonight. Hi, what in tarnation? And how are my colonialists doing tonight? Andromedan, I think, let me just make sure I have your question. Human Carl, how you doing? A great veteran of the United States Air Force. We love our Human Carl around here. Andromedan, I am not seeing your question in my queue. Can you retype it, please? I'd appreciate that. Keith, 2 minutes.
Yep, I'm here.
All right. One minute.
Okay, doke.
I like this comment by Lingering Shadow over on Twitch. When I was a teenager back in the 80s, my dad took me camping in the mountains of Colorado. We saw Bigfoot and it changed my life forever. The fact that I randomly clicked on your stream and you have a Bigfoot sign is mind-blowing. Well, welcome to SOR Chat. Most of our chatters are over on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio, if you want to join us there and join the crowd. If not, you can hang out right where you are, and it works. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Cindy Estes, welcome to SOR Chat. And there's our good friend, Area 53. Thank you for that lovely super chat, my friend. Appreciate that. Thank you also to Candace, T-Bone, and Shelley. No ugly swag. None. Guarantee it. Thank you, Area 54. We're at the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone tuning us in. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you know you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Our Keith Andrews, the ET Connection, taking audience questions about all things weird and strange. And Keith, we love it when you are here. Thank you for being here.
And thank you so much for having me. You know, it's always a joy coming here. It really is.
Let's start out with a question from our good friend Jose. Being of flesh and bone, do you think that cryptids could also be capable of interdimensional shifting?
I missed half of that question.
All right. Being of flesh and bone, do you believe that cryptids could also be capable of interdimensional shifting?
If we're referring to third dimensional, fourth dimensional, that sort of thing, the answer is no. However, and I think this is a terminology problem, they are capable of vibratory shifting. In other words, vibrating faster than the human eye can follow. So therefore, number one, appearing to drop out of sight and show up elsewhere, or phasing directly through physical matter. Because when you vibrate something at a higher pace, the molecules will actually pass between each other. It's only when they're at the same molecular speed that you can't pass through them, at least without leaving a hole.
I think they can.
I know you do.
This is my gut feeling. But then again, you and I always agree to disagree on Bigfoot, so.
Yep.
Hypersonic is
And
asking,
that's why I say it may well be a terminology problem.
why do you feel the feds refuse to disclose UFOs? They don't want you to know what's coming.
Control.
It's not good.
It's nothing but control. It's the same reason that people have not told other people what they've made and what they've made advances in their own rights. Government are just more people. And it's simply a question of, number one, most of it is control, but sometimes, and I hate to put it this way, there is technology that comes up that the average person really should not have access to. In all fairness, I'm a firm believer the government shouldn't have access to it, but let's limit the scope. I mean, think about it. Look at the Manhattan Project. Now, that was one project where they turned around, where the government turned around, made a maneuver with it. The result was disastrous. Now, with all of their knowledge, all of their safeguards, they had a problem. Now, what happens if you turn that kind of technology over to society in general? You know, there's an old saying that goes, what does this button do? And humans are notorious for pushing buttons just because they're curious what will happen. This is not necessarily wise maneuvering.
Let's go to Flubber. What alien species has the longest life expectancy?
Ultimately, I'd have to pin it down to either spirit itself, which isn't technically a species. If you're looking for an actual species, that would be the Zerziks. They are the only species I know of that their whole physical body will transfer from one rendition of reality to the next. You've heard of the Big Bang Theory, undoubtedly. Okay, and the Zerziks are the only species that comes across from one rendition to the next. It's the only one I've ever run into that does. So they would certainly rank up as the oldest.
All right, let's go to Jaquetta. Does one ET race protect certain humans from another race?
That would be an individual thing, and yeah, it does happen. You end up with some people make friends with off-worlders or ancient races, and they'll step in and use their abilities to protect people or to work with them. Usually, it's there's a mutual give and take on it.
All right, let's get to Andromedan's question. He's been waiting a while for this one. When someone have the cable to do interdimensional shifting, where would someone go if they have the ability to do it?
Now, number one, this is where we run into the problem we just were talking about. Interdimensional, as in going from third dimension to the fifth dimension or whatever, doesn't exist. Okay, but the technology to up your vibratory rate and thereby walk into a different rendition of what you perceive as reality is very possible. And that depends entirely on how fast you decide to make your body vibrate. But you do it literally right where you're standing. An obvious example of increased vibratory transition would be astral travel. You're simply vibrating at a different rate, and thereby you can shift through. It's an interesting transition. And there is some, if you will, there is some danger to it. So if you're going to do that, I do suggest being cautious. Unless you're planning on experiencing a repeat rendition of the Philadelphia experiment, because that can be a bad outcome.
All right, let's move on to another one here for you, Keith. James is asking, if conventional time travel cannot happen within our singular timeline, then how about the idea that people within the secret space program can be sent 20 years back into their own past?
Well, I like science fiction just as much as the next guy. Crikey, I write science fiction. Whether you're Black Ops, whether you're another race, whether you're an ancient race, doesn't matter. You can't go back in time, in my experience, or from everything I've looked at. Am I going to convince anybody of that? Not in this lifetime, in all likelihood.
Well, let's take another one. Tony, first time in our chat room. Thank you for tuning us in. What about the looking glass technology and the simulation life movie that is being played out? It feels like every day and its events have already happened on rapid desensitization.
Well, not having seen the movie, I start off with the point of movie. And the rapid desensitization,
what he means by movie is that life is like a movie.
Oh, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And people have the option. Everybody was given free will and freedom of choice. Now, what you choose to do with that is up to you. Okay? So the reality of it is, regardless of what anybody tells you, if you desire your life to change, you can actually make it change into what you'd like it to. Although you have to take into consideration it's the rest of society's collective viewpoint that you're up against. Because don't forget, you may think you can fly, but virtually everybody else on the planet has this idea of you step off the balcony, you're going to hit the ground. Now, if your will is strong enough to override that so you ignore them, you can actually do it. There has been one case that I heard of where that literally happened, and it was documented.
What about the theory that every day is like Groundhog Day?
You're referring to like the movie?
That would be like the movie.
Every day, every moment of every day is like Groundhog Day. You're always, 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 and I don't use that term very often, you're always starting over. And if you keep doing the same thing, you'll go back and repeat the same kind of outcome. You know, the best way I heard it put was true insanity is repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Now, it may happen. Okay. Like, for instance, I have a physical picture of a six-sided dice laying unsupported on its edge. Okay, so I know for an absolute fact this can happen. But I think when I looked it up, the odds are like a couple of billion to 1. And like I said, I've got that in a physical picture.
Ready for another one?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to Cody. Are the ant people related to and or the same thing as a mantid?
Negative. The Talon and the Kleeklok are two very different species and very much at war with each other a lot of the time, although not an open war. But they do not necessarily get along. You know, they do have similarities, but no, they are not related any more than an earthworm and a Gila monster are related.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Actually, in all fairness, the earthworm and the Gila monster are more closely related. At least they're from the same planet.
J True Seeker is asking, have you ever encountered mysterious stairs in the woods, and if so, where do they lead to?
Oh, God, no. But then I don't go to the woods. However, I do know what you're referring to, and they go up there are species that live in the clouds that you may well be able to get to. But I personally don't go near the woods. But that's got nothing to do with any sort of off-world or ancient race interaction. It has to do with I can walk behind a tree and be lost and not know where I am. I mean, heck, I went to the keg with you, Dave, about a year ago now. I got lost inside the keg.
Yes, you did.
So yeah, going to the woods is just a bad idea. You know.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Jose is asking, are the low crawlers thinly built cryptids, and is there a subspecies among them that is headless?
Well, are there cryptids that would fit that description? The answer is yes. Many of them come from the ancient past. Okay, and are there some that are headless? Yeah, absolutely. I recently came across, you'll love this one, a frog with no eyes. Okay, on the outside. Its eyes are literally inside its mouth. You know, so there are some very, very weird things on this planet. But cryptids on the whole, most of them are literally races that have been on Earth for centuries. There are a few that do not come from Earth.
Derek would like to know, Keith, if you had one off-world race to help humanity move forward in a positive direction, which race would you choose and why?
Number one, I would rather turn to humans. And I know that sounds absolutely bizarre because if you turn to the off-worlders, they're still having wars. They haven't figured it out yet. And most of their methods of helping mankind move forward would literally be to wipe out most of your governing people. And I mean wipe them out. It wouldn't be a question of, oh, you're no longer being elected. They would simply terminate them and start over. Now, I don't think this is in mankind's best interest, frankly. I would rather sit down with other humans and point out what we really have to do. I mean, bear in mind, and this sounds really, really self-centered or egotistical or what have you. I remember living on this planet where we had 100% total peace, no greed, no war. It was literally a unified planet. Now, I remember it. I know how they got there. But in order to get there, humans have to start talking to each other and not looking at different ways of killing each other or looking at different ways of getting off the planet. Okay, the off-worlders are pretty black and white on their methods of solving problems. The Sarkon, for instance, when they expanded too far, they expanded too far too fast. They set things in motion and cut 3 extended branches of their own race off. And they set them up and cut them loose to let them fend for themselves. Much like what the old British and Dutch did with Australia, where they took people, dropped them off on the planet on the island and said, you're on your own. Although the Sarkon were a whole lot nicer about it.
Yeah, we got time for a few more. Let's go to Flubber. What alien species has the fastest ship?
Ooh. Now, that is an excellent question. I can tell you the Korlock have one of the quickest. Now, understanding the ship themselves, the Talon are a phenomenal race, or not the Talon rather, but the Taurian have a ship that is something bizarre as far as speed goes. But I'm talking atmospheric speed in their case. Now, the Archon, they don't have a ship, but they will outrun just about every ship available. The Archon are actually living entities that feed on Kaboran. Okay, usually on young Kaboran. Kaboran, by the way, guys, planets and planetoids. Now, all Kaboran are a planet or a planetoid, but not all planets or planetoids are Kaboran. Now, I don't know who's got the actual fastest ship per se, because it's not like they have actual races with it.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to Super Crazy. Will Earth publicly join the galactic community before the end of this century?
Not much of a prayer in my eyes. In order to join the galactic community, the humans on this planet have got to develop a unified, as in a one world government, which, by the way, does not mean a sole dictator. It means a government set up, in essence, the UN is the baseline for it. But all races of humans have to be involved, or more to the point, the massive majority. Okay, bringing the pygmies of the Congo up to speed, or bringing the Aborigines of the deep outback in Australia may be a bit of a problem.
How come?
Well, they don't have the first comprehension of what we're calling first world countries. Okay, you drop a computer off with an Aboriginal, even an Aboriginal shaman. Okay, and you tell him nothing about the laptop. Sure, he'll poke at it. He'll hit it. He'll punch buttons. But sadly, if you hit a laptop with a club, odds are it won't work well. But
follow up.
humans have to start getting along.
Will Earth publicly join the galactic community?
In about a half a millennium, probably. Well, probably about a quarter millennium, if they survive the next 100 years. In other words,
right.
there is not much hope for anybody alive today to actually see it happen. Not my opinion on its current path.
Terry wants to know, Keith, when are you coming up to my area to go to Flight 21?
Well, that depends. Oh, up to your area. That is a good question. Can I give you a definitive answer? No, but I will guarantee it'll certainly at this point be after I'm married. But for me, that's a heck of a haul. Do you guys actually have an airport out that end?
You couldn't fly in here, no.
That becomes a problem.
Yeah. That it
For
does.
the added reason I gave my car away.
Let's go to Aussie Ange asking, so vibrating at a high level can shift you?
Yes. But we are talking about vibrating at a very high level. Not like humans that get into shakes. Okay, you got to vibrate a lot faster than that. But yes, it does work. Now, of course, the catch is you slow down your vibration, you'll shift back to your original spot, much like a rubber band.
All right, moving on here. Let's go over to Jose. Off topic. When ghosts have appeared existing lake or exiting lakes, how are they able to physically move underwater?
Oh, because they're not in the same sink as what water is. So they're literally, for lack of a better term, they're literally flying. The water is an inconsequential issue, and clearly they're not going to drown. Ultimately, that's what it boils down to.
But is there not safety in water for all sentient beings, whether it's UFOs or ghosts?
I love the idea. I drown. I'll take that as a no. You know? Water people consider safe because humans are born in water. In case you hadn't noticed, that's what's in the womb. But is the water safe? Go back to the dinosaur age or go to modern day, and we'll start with the sharks and the morays and work down from there. Or how about in Brazil? Get into the water in the Amazon jungle. I'm thinking this isn't going to be a healthy endeavor.
All right, Keith Andrews, we got him for another hour on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back. All right, Keith, we are clear. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm just going to put you in the green room, okay? Be right back, guys. Hi, Polly Rotterman. How are you? Cowboy Kitty. Welcome to SOR Chat, by the way. We got about a minute to go. Keith, let's add you in. Mac Geek, how are you? So for those of you who are looking and wondering about the next Flight 21 video, it's a long one, and it's got some interesting stuff in it. It will be playing this Sunday. We're going to launch it. It's got some weird stuff in there, man. Weird stuff. I'm thinking it's going to go probably around 5 or 6 p.m. Pacific. Thank you tonight to Area 54, Candace, T-Bone, and Shelly for the super chats. Here we go. Hi, B. Arthur. Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to say hello to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Terrasis. Terrasis is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. A few years ago, I had to commute to my job from October 2018 to January of 2019. It was nothing special. A retail job, but I lived in a rural area in the California foothills.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another spooky story. If you want more just like that, head on over to YouTube and hit subscribe. Ring that bell. He's got thousands of stories right there for you. All right, we have our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection joining us tonight for hour number 3. And, Keith, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no problem. Thanks so much for having me.
Ready for more
You know,
questions
it's
from our
been,
dear
what, a
audience?
decade now? Absolutely.
Start off with Shelley. Why would a weird frog with hard bum spikes come to your door and just sit there and stare at you for hours?
Best way I can put that is curiosity. But honestly, I'm not entirely certain you're dealing with a different race, so much as simply an animal you haven't seen before. And there's a lot of them surfacing as of late. But like humans, most animals are curious if they're not feeling threatened.
Do you find with a lot of these creatures, whether they're frogs, owls, deer, whatever it may be, do you feel that they can be representative of something extraterrestrial?
Representative of? In as much as there are many species that are extraterrestrial that are similar in appearance, the answer would be yes. But is their behavior representative of what's on other planets? Very seldom. Like, we refer to a general configuration of a certain type of species as reptilian. The reality is they aren't reptiles. They just look like Terran reptiles. You know, when you take a look at things when you look at the grays, what I know is the reticulans. These are not, you take a look at those, and there are races that I've seen that look like elephants, that look like deer, dinosaurs. They simply look similar to what humans are. This does not mean, or to what Terran animals are. This does not mean that they are a rendition thereof or a descendant thereof. Hopefully that makes sense.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to our next question from our audience. Let's go to Ozzy Ange. Do you believe, our Keith, that if we can't go back into the past, when people say they went back in the past, are going to a different timeline, which is active at the same time we are in now?
Negative. You don't jump timelines either. Not from everything I've seen. The subquantum ramifications of jumping timelines or moving into a different timeline are astronomical. And at this point, I really don't know how to explain how complicated and how devastating that would be. Okay, I mean, they make for great stories. They really do. And people that are dealing with that, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, maybe I am. But am I going to alter my stand on it because I might be wrong? Not a prayer.
All right. Let's go to Super Crazy next. Do aliens watch NHL hockey? If yes, do they just observe, or do they each become a fan of a team?
Again, this is a personal thing. Okay, and it's not a racial thing in their case. Some will sit and watch, some will vote and will look at a Terran team and go, that's the team I'm voting for. And they can get just as excited, with one big difference. In the case of some of the events when they're watching them, humans will scream at the TV. Okay, or they might get really excited in the stands. If on an off-world environment they get overly excited, you may end up with a number of the audience dead. Okay, they're a little bit more rambunctious where it comes to getting excited.
Jose is asking, do you believe that the U.S. government at one point actually had and tested a time machine? There have been persistent rumors about its existence.
That goes back to the time issue. If they are talking about moving something forward in time, probably. Okay. Do I have any firsthand knowledge where I can say absolutely they did? No. Of course, in all fairness, it's not like I'm in touch with the U.S. government. First and foremost, I happen to be Canadian, so they're not really all that interested in talking to a layman. You know, the U.S. government is a little protective of its secrets. Mind you, so is every other government.
Next
But
question.
again, fire away.
Next question comes from Polly. Do you think ETs are capable of taking us to the past or to the future, and does it affect our timeline?
Number one, to the past, no. Nobody, from everything I know, nobody can go to the past. Is it possible they'll take you to the future? Certainly, but you'll never get back here. Okay, if they take you to the future, you're done here. But will it affect our timeline? Not in the slightest. It'll affect your timeline, because all of a sudden, if you think you're having trouble adapting to today's world, try jumping 50 years in the future and then try and adapt.
Moving on, let's go next to Human Carl. When one speaks of someone's vibration or frequency, what exactly is vibrating? Or where is the frequency being generated? How are these measured? How many cycles per second is a good vibration or frequency?
Well, we'll start with vibration and frequency are probably referring to the same thing. As far as the cyclic rate, I have no way of telling you. I am not a scientist. I can tell you that the best rate is the one you're sitting in, because it's the one your body is adjusted to. But what is vibrating is your subquantum molecular system, the configuration that makes you, you. That's the thing that is vibrating. And again, you can vibrate to move into a different vibratory state. But the second you drop your vibration to normal, you pop back into this one, much like an elastic band.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's go to Jose. What is the average lifespan of a female or male Bigfoot?
About 150 years.
Super Crazy is asking, did aliens create humanity? If so, how and when?
Only technically. But it turned out it wasn't. I say only technically because it was actually an ancient race that created man. Okay, man would call them gods. There's no question there. Okay, many men would. But we are talking way back before time was recorded in today's world. And no, by the way, man was not created as all of a sudden there's man. It was an evolutionary punch.
Moody would like to know, does Keith think that time is one thing? Example, all time exists at once?
Ultimately, yes. The reference of today, tomorrow, and yesterday is something that sentient entities have long ago decided to refer to, okay, as a reference point for communication. But time itself only happens in the here and now. The problem is that once something occurs, you cannot undo it.
Cosmic Joe is asking, do you watch comic book movies? And if you do you like Marvel or DC?
Personally, I like Marvel. And the short answer is I watch as many of them as I can get away with. Understanding, they talk about time travel and alternate dimensions in both of those genres. Okay, the other side to that is my favorite character in Marvel is Wolverine.
Derek is wondering, how can one raise their vibration to the point of seeing higher entity beings consistently?
Well, the short answer would be forget you don't know how. I know that sounds really cryptic, but ultimately, the more you accept everybody is equally important as everybody else and everything is equally important, this will help you see the bigger picture, because you'll stop relying on what you're told is the important part, and you'll start following in where your heart sees it.
All right, moving on. Let's go to Super Crazy. What's the deal with the gray aliens? Are they cybernetic? Who sent them here and why?
Okay, I just need to point something out before I answer that. Somebody in the chat room mentioned I'm missing out on the DC comic, on the DC movies. I watch all of them as well. Now, as for the Greys, number one, they are not robotic, cybernetic clones or any of that. They came here because the triple helix of the human genome is the most compatible for the hybridization program. That's why they come, because they are the easiest and most easily repairable species they've come across, and therefore the most adaptable. But they weren't actually sent by anybody.
All right, let's move on to the next one. I want to go back to Human Carl here for a quick second, Keith, because he's saying, I didn't understand the answer to his question about what is vibrating. Please expand on what it is.
Okay. When we're talking about what is vibrating, it is literally the molecules of matter or the things called the subquantum molecules that comprise matter. That is what is actually vibrating. Now, whether we call that a vibration or a frequency, both kind of apply, but they refer to the same thing. Okay, but that's the physical thing that is vibrating. And the more you understand, the more you accept about the similarities between people, the easier it is to raise your vibratory rate. Hopefully that helps, but I'm not entirely certain it does.
Would that lead to the ability to do things like summon UFOs?
Summon might be the wrong word, but contact certainly. Because once you get to the point that you accept everything is equally valid, and you realize that the only difference between talking to somebody on Earth and communicating with somebody in a starship, once you realize that's done exactly the same way, making contact with them becomes child's play. Summoning would kind of infer, in my opinion, that you're calling them and saying, show up here. Even if you're being polite. Okay. Now, that said, once you've made contact, they're more likely to connect with you.
All right. Let's go to another question here. Cindy's first ever question in our chat room. Keith, what do you know about electromagnetic field created wormholes, Einstein-Rosen bridge?
Number one, it's a very real event. The electromagnetic field that you're referring to is done. It's isolated onto the subquantum level, way below what mankind realizes. Okay, but it is what you're talking about. The Einstein-Rosen, what the heck was it called? The bridge, anyway. Sorry, it rolled up and I lost the word. That is a direct conduit from the Gaddafi homeworld to here. The Gaddafi, by the way, you guys understand as being the Nords. Okay. We also used to refer to them as the North gods, the Roman gods, and the Greek gods. All come from the same place. Well, they're all the same people, just different names.
All right, let's move on here. Jose is wondering. Oh, never mind. We'll get to Jose later. Let's go to Polly. Why experiencers aren't used as a force by the ETs in order to break the government's lies instead of making each experience a weird process?
Oh, that's the easy part. Humans have to be left to evolve on their own pace. You cannot. The off-worlders are forbidden to influence the growth evolution of man. So man's got to find its own way. Now, the reality is, humans have to realize they already know the government isn't telling them the entire truth. But with that in mind, what would make a human think that an off-worlder was going to be honest? Humans are a very infantile race, and they do not automatically, well, actually they do. As little children, up until about age 4, humans are very trusting. But the adults are teaching them to absolutely fear everything. So all of a sudden you've got, we're not going to believe what you say anyway. And let's face it, there's a lot of predators, even on Earth. There are a lot of animals that are predators that use deception as a way to draw their prey in. Humans are going to look at it as well.
Keith, we have about a minute to go here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Let's go to Super Crazy. Is Bigfoot an extraterrestrial? If yes, who put him on Earth? Keith doesn't believe he is.
Pretty much sums it up. that pretty much sums it up. And
out of all things, I never thought you'd be a flesh and blooder on Sasquatch.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll disagree with you on that one. Again.
Yeah, that's not a problem. That's the advantage of it. From my standpoint, I don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Oh, I hear you there, my friend. I hear you there. Yeah, I believe in the woo as much as I believe in B. Arthur from the Golden Girls Staying Golden.
Yeah,
That's
but she
right.
was a good actress. Weird,
yes, she
but
was.
She was a good actress.
Yes, she was. All right, Keith, we got a half hour left with you tonight on Spaced Out Radio. It's always great to have our Keith Andrews of the ET Connection here near the beginning of each month. That's why I love what I do. When we turn up the woo for another half hour. Hey, B. Arthur, isn't it time for you to go to bed? Isn't it your bedtime? It'll be. All right. I've literally got 2 questions for the next half hour. All right,
Okay.
Dry Toast, best name on YouTube. $500 in fireworks. Poof. Excellent. Excellent. Excuse me. Thank you, Human Carl, for that great super chat. Love you, buddy.
Keep doing it. Drop a pen down between my desk legs.
I hate that.
Yeah, it's a pain in the neck.
I'll ask, Joe. I will ask.
You want to bring me up to speed on what Flight 21 is?
That's the crash site I'm investigating.
Oh, okay.
We got 3 minutes.
Yep, not a problem. I'm not exactly going far. You know, I haven't heard those called that in a very long time.
Your sideburns are looking great tonight.
I appreciate that. I gotta go get a haircut, but I'll be danged if I'm gonna let him trim my hair, my sideburns again.
No, don't do that.
Oh God, no! I did that the last time he removed them.
I know he butchered them. Here, let's get a
No,
close up on them. Let's get a close up on them pork chops. Turn your head to the side. Look at that. Other side. Oh, beautiful.
See, I do my best to keep them even. But I'll be danged if I'm
Beautiful.
gonna let somebody do it again.
B. Arthur, the only thing that you've had weird happen is getting lost on the way to the bathroom at the bingo hall. Oh, that was a stinger, that one.
That was
Brett
really
Thomas
fun.
is amazing. He's absolutely amazing. That guy makes me laugh.
No, I love when people talk to me about where I travel to. It's like, people don't get how easily I get lost. But it was nice having you remember that I ended up getting lost there, because people don't believe it's possible.
Yeah, but that restaurant was weird.
Yeah, but I do that in damn near every restaurant. Except that's why I only go to one, because they leave the place built the same way. You know?
B. Arthur, you're making me laugh, buddy. You're making me laugh. Big thank you tonight to, let's see if I can see these. Human Carl, Fast Hemi, Shelly, T-Bone, Candy, and Area 54. Greatly appreciate your love and support of SOR, everybody. So thank you very, very much. Don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. And we're going to get going in like 14 seconds. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Our Keith Andrews of the ET Connection going the distance tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Our Keith Andrews going to the top of the hour. He's a trooper tonight, doing all 3 hours of the show with me. Keith, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no problem. Make up for the month we for the month we lost a couple of months back.
Right? All right, let's get right to it. Let's start off with Moody, who is asking, was Stonehenge some form of UFO charging station where the UFOs sat on top while charging?
By George, somebody actually got it. The short answer is yes. More to the point, it was a landing station. Because not all UFOs actually have legs. Now, was it aligned to the stars, etc.? Absolutely. But it was built in order to provide a landing point. And of course, the Druids, when they found it, just put it to use. But that's the first person, and that's actually the first time I've ever been asked that by anybody. So congratulations to whoever that was.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's go to Polly. How can I communicate with my hybrid child? Does it depend on me?
If we are talking about does the child depend on you, the answer would be no. As far as communicate, that's an individual thing, but most of the time there is a mental link between you and the child. And therefore, it literally boils down to concentrating and thinking about the conversation. And then you just have to learn to trust your instincts on the response. But does it rely on you for survival? The answer is no. It does, however, tap into your understanding of your language in order to understand the crossover.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Andromedan is asking, Keith, do you know who or what races are beyond this universe?
Not all of them, but I do know of a number of them, yes. But we also have to remember that knowledge comes because I remember many of my past lives. Okay, and I wasn't always on Earth. I mean, frankly, I've only been on Earth for about 5 billion years. Maybe 6 at this point.
And it's amazing your sideburns are still so short.
Yeah, well, I do tend to trim them. I usually keep them at about the jawline.
All right, let's move on, Keith. Let's go to Joe. Everybody's very interested in our Flight 21 project that Tim James and I are investigating, and there has been alien activity out there before. Remember a couple of years ago I told you about the landing that we had there with the ETs running through the trees?
Yes, I remember that one quite well.
All right. Tim recently, a couple of weeks ago, saw a being about 5 feet, very thin, oval-shaped head. Sounded like a gray. What's with the ET action out there?
Yeah, it sounds like the reticulans are back, but it was tall, about the 4.5, 5 foot mark. Odds are it was a reticulan D, meaning one of the ET controllers, one of the reticulan controllers. They're the people that essentially would qualify as an overseer.
Do you think the ETs are going to come out and play more there?
Probably. I don't know if you want to call it playing. I mean, scientists would call it playing. You know, but are they a threat to anybody out there? No. But I have no doubt there will be ongoing investigation out there for quite some time.
Fast Hemi is asking, Do any aliens have human being type private parts?
The short answer is yes. Specifically, I can tell you the Eniod, the Gadefni, the Anunnaki, and the Mobians all are literally built the same way, just various different sizes. So you look at the Gadefni and the Eniod, or the Mobians, perfectly human compatible. Anunnaki can never mate with a human, period. It's just not physically possible.
Moving on. Let's go to Jerence Carter. If time travel is impossible, how do you explain time slips that people sometimes encounter?
That's the easy part. See, the human brain works a whole lot different than what humans realize. So it's not a question of a time slip they're encountering. It's quite often, if you're talking about about something in the past, more often than not, your mind picks up on a past life memory, which are recorded in what in today's vernacular would be classified as hot links. Okay, and you tap in, you get a glimpse of the past, but it's something that's already occurred. You're not going back there per se. Okay, that ultimately is the way it works. And no, it doesn't mean anybody's losing their mind. In all reality, it's more a case of they're finding it.
Let's go to Jules. Were Plato, Socrates, who remembers Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? Socrates. Yeah, Socrates Johnson, remember that? Were Plato, Socrates, Da Vinci, and Merlin all alien hybrids, or any other fabled or famous people?
Negative. No, I can't say any other fabled people, but I can tell you Plato himself, Socrates, and Einstein, all of those, absolutely. Most of them I actually met. I was not them. Okay, but they were human, at least from everything I ever knew. Humans have some remarkable insights. And we got to remember the Mobians, not all Mobians left, 50,000 years ago. So the few that survived at the 40,000 year ago tragedy, there were some people with that kind of insight, but they were human. And they did pass on their genetics. Kind of like today's humans pass on their genetics to their kids.
All right, next question coming up is from Terry. Keith, how do you astral project?
Ultimately, the best way I can put it is find a comfortable place to sit when you're wide awake. Because if you do this when you're tired, you're going to pass out and have a great sleep. But sit down in a comfortable position. I recommend highly against the lotus position. Sit down, listen for your heartbeat, or more to the point, feel for it. Don't put your hand on your throat or on your wrist where it's traditional to pick it up. You sit and literally feel for it. Once you can feel your heartbeat in your chest, crack your pulse out as far as you can get. As you do that, you're going to feel a disconnect between you and the physical world you're sitting on. That is where you run into the biggest problem. Because as soon as you start to lift off it, the first instinct is to grab hold again. So it's going to take you some effort, but eventually you'll separate, and then you'll be able to float and see the rest of the world, travel through the walls, go where you will. It's absolutely an exhilarating experience. Do not forget to put there to make sure you've got a silver cord, an umbilical cord connecting you. Because I will tell you, if you don't, you can get lost in the astral plane. And yes, contrary to some people's belief, you die in the astral plane, your cord gets cut, your physical body dies. Okay, that's why you end up with some people just dying with no warning. They probably went for an astral trip and disconnected. But that's the easiest way to do it. The reason for the cord is so you can find yourself on your way back. It's kind of like doing a spacewalk. You'd like to know where your body was left. But that's the Reader's Digest version of doing it. But it's absolutely going to take some time. It'll take some time and some practice. But like I said, make sure you're wide awake when you do it. Because if you're tired, you will sleep like a log. You'll wake up really refreshed. But the odds of you actually traveling, not necessarily good. So hopefully that answers that.
All right, moving on, Keith. Next, let's go to Cosmic Joe. Is the government going to stage a war between Earthlings and the aliens, or is something coming that we should be afraid of rationally?
Rationally? Not at all. Well, rationally, be afraid of human stupidity. Absolutely be afraid of that. Are the governments of any part of Earth ever going to stage a war against the off-worlders? Absolutely not. If a war were to start, and let me be very clear about this, if a war were to start between the aliens and the humans, the war would be over before mankind ever even knew it started. It would just be over. Fortunately, the aliens don't have any interest in war with humans. In their eyes, humans don't know how to have a war.
That's
So
surprising.
from a rational standpoint, I certainly wouldn't worry about that.
All right, let's get to another one here, Keith. Let's go to Polly. In my experience, I was taken to a craft to give love and support to the babies and women. Why do ETs need our empathy?
Most of them don't have it and don't understand it. But they understand the necessity of it, and they've learned that by watching the way humans interact with their own kids. Okay, even with the humans that are what we consider not good parents, compared to many races, humans are way above and beyond. I mean, understand, some races eat their kids before they're born, before they actually get finished forming. Many races will literally let the child survive on its own. If it does, it becomes a member of society. If it doesn't, well, it wasn't going to be much use to them anyway. Most races do not have the level of empathic compassion that humans do. And this is one of the things that the off-worlders watch.
All right, let's move on. Ethanol would like to know, do the enlightened spiritual leaders have anything to do with aliens?
Some of them. Okay, but anytime you hear any of the so-called enlightened people talking about alien overriding or alien invasion, alien control, these people are not, in my opinion, enlightened. They are fear-mongering at the best. Okay, and there's a whole lot of other things I could say, but we'll leave it at that.
All right, we got 6 minutes to go here, Keith, with you tonight. Let's go to, who's next here? Let's go to Super Crazy. Will aliens actually prevent a nuclear war on Earth, or would they just sit back and let the horror show happen?
That depends on the severity. If the nuclear war is going like what happened, I think it was 1996, when everything went to DEFCON 1, and all the I don't know if it was 96 or 86, but in any event, if enough nuclear missiles are fired up, the off-worlders will step in and shut the nuclear reactors down, because then it becomes a threat to Esau, who you know as Mother Earth or as Gaia. If it is just one country dropping a nuclear bomb on somebody else, so be it. It's a few humans and a number of other animals that'll be dead. But it won't do any functional damage to the planet. So, a few nuclear bombs they're going to ignore.
Are there aliens living among us disguised as humans for nefarious purposes?
Probably. The reason I put it that way is, number one, let's understand, none of them are in positions of power. But many, like you do have some Singinan that look human. Oh, I forgot them. They were human. They evolved here. And quite frankly, most of them still live here. But when you look at that, some, like every race, there are some people that are, shall we say, a bit homicidal. So yeah, some are certainly here on a negative front, but none of them are in positions of power of any corporation and or government. Okay, if that's what we're looking at. But just on the flip side of that, there's also a number of them that are here for beneficent and for benevolent reasons. Okay. So, I mean, you got 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Or you got the ones that fit in the middle that are just here to see.
All right, let's get to another question. Let's go to Jules. Do others envy our creativity?
Many of them, absolutely. Okay. The only 2 species, 3 species I know of that really aren't overly envious of it or paying attention to it for that matter are the Venusians, the Orions, and the Mobians. Okay, I guess realistically the Anunnaki probably aren't much concerned about it either. But many of them are very concerned, are very interested in the creative side of things. And the Xenon absolutely are interested in it. I don't know if I'd call it envious, but they are looking at it from that standpoint.
All right. Continuing on, let's go to Shelley. What's behind the door everyone is trying to pick the lock to?
Somebody's going to have to clue me in on which door.
Well, we're talking UFOs and aliens, so it's going to be about that versus humanity.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the short. The short answer is they're looking for the truth. Only I believe it was stated one day you can't handle the truth, and most humans really are not. They're just not ready to accept what's really sitting there. I suspect the shortest answer would be what I call God. Okay, and rest assured, what I call God is not what you read about in any Bible. But ultimately, that's what's back there.
All right, Keith, let's move on. Do aliens have transporter technology like in Star Trek? Beam me up, Scotty.
Absolutely. When I was about 15 years ago, I was down in Portland, Maine, and we had them show up utilizing that technology. That's when the Pleiadian hybrids and the Gedephnei showed up. And they showed up literally in that fashion by all of a sudden fading into existence. And this was done with witnesses. To say the least, it was a trippy endeavor.
One minute to go. I think we got time for one more. Keith, can the government hoax the second coming of Jesus Christ?
A little hard to hoax it. It's already happening. It's just people don't know. And ultimately, the answer would be, I find it really hard pressed for them to actually hoax it. But you're going to have to look to the Bible to understand that one. That one, I can't explain. I cannot explain here. More to the point, will not. But I will put this open thing out there. Will I talk to individuals about it? Certainly. Just not on air. There's way too many complications. Or more to the point, not on a live station. One-on-one, I got no problem, or face-to-face, absolutely talk to me. But
Keith,
no, the
20
government will
seconds.
not.
Tell everybody where they can find your YouTube channel.
That's the easy part. Track down R. Keith Andrews on YouTube. It'll give you all the contacts. The other place you can get it is go to buymeacoffee.com/innervoiceJ. And that'll get you right directly in touch with me as well.
Keith, it's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. Hard to believe 3 hours has burned on by. Thank you very much for tuning us in tonight, everybody, and listening to Keith and his great answers as he brings the woo every time he's on the air. We say goodnight to Keith and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right, R. Keith. Good job tonight. You did well.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I wonder, Shelley Montgomery goes, Keith, I don't like your friend. I'm certain that matters to me somewhere. I just don't know who she's referring to.
Your alien friends.
Oh well. I got over it pretty quick. You know? But thank you so much, Dave. Really appreciate it. Hard to believe we passed the 10-year mark, isn't it?
Weird, buddy. Weird. You're such a great dude, my friend. Thank you for being a wonderful friend.
Not a problem at all. Yeah, like I said, my gang up to your end of the world, not likely. I gave my car to my son.
One second here.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you.
Not a problem.
You have yourself a good night, okay?
You too. You take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Our Keith Andrews, everybody. Big thank you tonight to Candy, T-Bone, my man, Shelley, Area 54, Human Carl, and Fast Hemi for the super chats. We're going to call it the night here. I will be back on Monday. What I'd like for all of you to do is you look up. Hold on. Where is it here? Where am I? Gotta find myself on camera. Look up here and over here. You will see a pinned note from the suites. Head on over to the shift if you want to continue on with the entertainment, if you're not ready for bed. Oh, pardon me, the social dig. Why did I say the shift? How silly. Head on over here. Hold on. Here. Click on that to the social dig and go watch some fireworks special with the Sweets. We call him the Sweets here. The man with the beautiful red chin hair, Sweet Robbie G on the social dig. Good night, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.